What are we entitled to believe? Can we believe anything we like? Can we only believe what we choose to believe? Are there beliefs options that are closed to us? And what about the morality of belief? Is it immoral to believe some things? A lot of these questions probably never occurred to you at all. But I'm hoping a little reflection on an article by William James will not only open the door to those considerations, but empower you to see a few more issues in a new light. William James is an American philosopher of the late 19th, early 20th century, who is a member of the school referred to as pragmatism. Now, there's lots of ways of defining pragmatism. I prefer to use James's notion that it's principally a theory of meaning. And for James, pragmatism, the theory of meaning, means that what a word, a phrase, an event, a thing means to you is its cumulative effects on you. Thus, it means what it pushes at you. Now, it also means what you get, you see. It's not just what comes from the outside. It's not just what the thing does. It's the effects it has on you. You and I both step out into the rain. One of us will cover up. The other will pull our shirt off. The rain means different things to us. Why? Well, it's the history we have with the rain. It's all of the effects the rain has had on either of us all that period of time. And it's now going to have one more effect that maybe it's never had before. It's made me aware that you cover up in the rain, and it's made you aware that I get naked in the rain. Both responses affect each other now. So it's the cumulative effects that a thing has on you, is its meaning. So what then is truth? If meaning is the cumulative effect a thing has on you, well, part of what James would say about the truth is once we've gotten to all the possible effects a thing could have on all the possible people in the world, or as he says it more clearly, when the last speaker has had the last say, then and only then will we have the truth in all capital letters. In the meantime, all we have is what we have so far. It's the cumulative effects, processed, used. How does it push the ball forward? A lot of people accuse pragmatism of just being, well, whatever works is true. Well, that's true insofar as it works, and it doesn't work completely. Look at it instead of this way. As we build up all the effects, as we add them all together, my world, your world, we process together, we'll learn more about it. It may be that what we thought today is 100% wrong in a year's time. We chuck it out the window. Big deal. We've learned more. What was true today, not true tomorrow. You say, looking backward, well, it wasn't true then. Well, you're right, it wasn't true then. Because it's false now? No. We knew the best we knew then, and that was what was the truth. It's not true anymore. It stopped being true. We collected new effects. We collected new meanings. The truth went away. It changed. This idea that truth is not permanent is called fallibilism. And it's simply, as I say, the acknowledgement that as more effects come rolling in, the meaning of a thing will change. The truth about it will change. Okay. Bringing this idea that the truth can change to the table when we talk about matters of what we believe James wants to suggest that there are some things we will only be entitled to believe if we choose to believe. He's trying to reply to a work by William Clifford, where Clifford suggests that people who believe things that they don't have adequate evidence for are wrong to do so. Clifford tells the story about a man who sets out on a voyage with a ship that he has inadequate evidence to believe can complete the voyage. In fact, he has good evidence to the contrary. What James wants to say is, sometimes it's only true because you believe it. He gives the example of being able to jump over a crevasse when you're out hiking in the wilderness. If you approach that gap and you say, oh, I'll never get across it, there's every chance you'll fail. If, on the other hand, you approach that gap with a sense of positivity, it seems to increase the likelihood you'll succeed. That some of our beliefs are self-fulfilling. And obviously, not all. He also believes that some things only come into being once we believe them. You can't have a relationship with Tinkerbell if you don't believe there's a Tinkerbell to have a relationship with. I make a little jest there, but nevertheless, it's true that you can't discover what's out there if you don't believe it's possibly out there. Maybe? Well, anyway, let's talk a little further. James is not trying to apply this to everything. If we went back to the example of Clifford's boat, James would say, no, you're not entitled to believe that. That ship does not make the adequate goals, the adequate levels that he sets for being entitled to believe. So what does he talk about? He says, well, first, it has to be a living option. Now, what does that mean? He suggests that as we go into the world, there are some things it's possible for us to believe in, and there are other things that it's not possible. Just simply not possible. It's not a matter of is it right or wrong, or is it true or false. It's just a matter of can you believe it or not. Say believing in Santa Claus. If you've worked with a department store Santa Claus, or you've been up with parents on a Christmas Eve, you're pretty sure that Santa Claus is a closed door to you. You can't possibly consider that Santa Claus is an option. On the other hand, you might be able to consider that if you hear noise in the woods, it could be Bigfoot. It may be that you're able to consider the possibility of ancient aliens building the pyramids. Any of these other options are live to you. But if an option is dead to you, then you have no business even thinking about trying to believe in it. Again, a big part of what we're doing here is suggesting that it is our belief in a thing that makes a thing possible. Our belief about an object that makes our interacting with that object possible. If we don't believe, then it's not going to happen. If it's simply a matter of belief. Should Bigfoot grab me by the hair of the head? It's no longer a matter of belief. Bigfoot has me by the hair of the head. The great thing, though, about Bigfoot is it's not an issue. I'm not going into the woods. I don't have to worry about whether Bigfoot's out there. It's not a problem for me. I don't have to make a choice. He would call that an unforced option. And taking an action on an unforced option, I'm not entitled to do. I'm not entitled to just jump to a conclusion, as it were, issue a belief if it's not something that makes a real difference to me. Some things, however, I'm forced to make a choice about. I'm back in the mountains now, and I'm hiking along, and there's a crevasse, and I have to decide whether or not to jump over it. If I'm not, I got to turn back and go the way I came and go home, or else I'm going to continue along with the rest of my party that's already gotten across the crevasse. So what do? It's a forced option now. I have to make a choice. Jump or don't jump. Most things in life aren't that way. Most things in life we can kind of pass on, postpone. But there are some things on some occasions, he says, where we have to make a choice, where it makes a difference. And then there are momentous options that I look at the pyramids and say they were built by Egyptian slaves. There's nothing momentous there. Or Egyptian freemen. Nothing momentous there. All we're saying is normal, actual human beings, one way or another, for whatever motive behind their actions, built the pyramids. However, choosing to believe it was done by ancient astronauts, now that would be a big deal. Nothing trivial there. That would be huge. And to be right about such a thing would be truly huge. So it is only those options which are a big deal, momentous, which we have to make the choice, forced, and are living options to us. That is to say, they are options which we can actually invest our time, energy, and belief in. These options are ones that we are entitled to exert our will to believe. Let's consider at least some of the reasons we might accept this. It does seem like there are things which, if we do not believe them, they will never come to pass. We talk about meeting a person who we want to spend time with. Do we have adequate evidence? Is there such a thing as adequate evidence? I mean, how will you know? You don't. You just decide to take a chance. And in taking that chance, you believe it's going to have a positive outcome, or you wouldn't be taking that chance. Or at least you believe it's possible that you'll have a positive outcome, or you wouldn't be taking that chance. And you don't have evidence, not adequate evidence at all. You hardly know this person. But without taking that chance, you'll never know this person. Likewise, getting involved in athletic events. People do set personal bests at an event. They go into a competition and suddenly excel beyond anything they've ever done before. They had no real reason to expect this would happen, but it did. Why? Because the athlete thought it might. And they go out and compete with a higher level of activity and have performed at a higher level of achievement than they have ever done so before, because they were willing to believe it was possible. Now, James wants to extend this on into the religious field, although it's interesting to note he doesn't wind up believing in any particular religion. He simply says that if it is a genuine option to you, that is to say, one that you can actually believe there is a deity, that you're forced to make that choice, and that it makes a difference in your life and in the world, then you're entitled to make a choice and believe. But he doesn't say who you believe or what you believe. That's left up to you. It is not likely for most of us that it is a living option that we might believe that the universe was created by Cronus or Uranus or, I'm trying to remember, chaos. I mean, we just don't believe in those things. Those aren't real options to us at all. They're not living options, and as such, it doesn't matter whether they're forced or momentous. They're just not living to us. Other contemporary deities we may find problems with too. There are logical reasons or theological reasons that we reject all these other deities. Have we closed the door entirely? Well, some people have. Some people just have, God's not an option to me anymore, can't consider it. But perhaps you're one to whom it's at least something you could consider. Well, then you can move on to the next step. Is it something that's forced on you? If not, then you're not entitled to make the jump. Only if it's something that you feel forced on you. Perhaps some great event has happened in your life, and in order to account for it, you're open to the possibility of a deity, and now you have to deal with this new input. You have to deal with this event that's impacted your reality, has had an effect on you. What does it mean? James says, okay. You got two out of three characteristics of a genuine option where you are entitled to make a choice. What about that last thing? Is it momentous? As odd as it may seem, belief in God may not be the least momentous. It may not really make a difference to you at all, especially if the sort of God you're going to wind up believing in is essentially a God of the philosophers, something constructed in order just to explain your particular event that you've had happen to you, and now you can forget about it entirely. However, it may also be momentous. It may make a big difference in how you react to this new effect in your life. And then James says, you're entitled to make a choice. It's interesting that James, in most places at least, says he agrees with Charles Peirce that a belief is simply a tendency to act and thus in such a way. If that's true, then the will to believe is simply the will to act and thus in such a way. It isn't taking on some new mindset, some new collection of facts, almost facts, pseudo-facts, nearly facts. It's just simply saying, I'm going to act from now on based on the effects that have already come in on me. I'm going to choose to act from now on in such a way that indicates that some kind of deity is in the world. And I'm entitled because of these conditions. If those conditions aren't met, I'm not entitled. Most of those people who criticize James, not all, miss that last point, that it has to meet all those conditions. James is not saying, oh, I just want to believe that Santa Claus is coming. No. You're not entitled to that. I just want to believe in a hereafter where I'll meet my mother and father and all my loved dead ones again. Well, that's great. But is it a living option to you? Is it a forced option? Is it a momentous option? Otherwise, and for most of us, particularly that forced option, I mean, come on. You don't have to believe in a hereafter. It's not forced on you. It might be momentous, be a big deal if we knew we were going to meet him in the future. It might be something you feel is possible, but is it forced? I'm not too clear on that one. And if it isn't, then you're not entitled to make that jump. Only those sorts of things. Again, going back to the obvious example of the successful athlete, I'm about to compete in the long jump. I think I can do this. Am I entitled to believe it? Well, it's an open option. I just said it was living. I think I can do it. Is it forced? Well, yeah, I'm either going to have to run out here and jump or not. I don't have any option of the postponing things or not having to answer this question. This is a question I have to answer now. I am either going to jump or I'm not. Is it momentous? Well, depends on how important the sporting event is to you. But if it is a big enough deal, yes, it's momentous. So now I'm entitled to believe I can make this long jump and go running out there and hurl myself into space. Not everything is that way. A good cup of coffee, driving to the store. If your car is sitting out there with no tires on it, all the belief in the world isn't going to change that. It's not a living option. You don't have to go to the store. It's not a forced option. It's not going to make a difference really whether you go to the store or not. It can wait till tomorrow. You can catch the bus. You can call a friend. So you're not entitled to believe you can take that car to the store. And that, of course, is where the skipper was in the Clifford example of the boat. The boat isn't up to making the trip. You're not entitled to assume that it is. It's not a living option. It's not a forced option. Might be momentous because a lot of people die and lose a lot of money in the story Clifford tells, but it didn't meet all three characteristics. The only thing I think I want to push back hard against, though, well, there are two things I want to push back hard against. One is free will. See another video for that. But the other thing is that idea of belief. If belief is simply a tendency to behave in thus and such a way, then there's an extent to which this starts becoming a fake it till you make it concept. And I don't know how I feel about that. It's something I need to consider more and think about more. Think about more. Think about more. Think about these things. If they make a difference, there's something you need to investigate further. If you're investigating, you might as well be talking to other people investigating the same thing. Think about it. Talk about it. Keep talking philosophy.